Hello, my name is Dr. Ritesh Shah. I'm based at the University of Auckland in New Zealand. I'd like to offer some thoughts from my perspective on how we might reimagine education in emergencies in this moment. The dismantling of the U.S. aid and the decision to end U.S. foreign assistance to education entirely has attracted significant concern and attention. Many have rushed to defend USAID's work in supporting the most vulnerable and in keeping us all safe. Their points are valid to a degree. American aid has and cannot be replaced easily. In the education sector, USAID was the third largest bilateral donor, with a sizable portion of this funding targeted at conflict and crisis-affected context. For millions of young people, such support provides access to education, which may not be available otherwise. But returning to the way things were prior to Trump's executive order freezing foreign aid is not the answer. I feel there is an opportunity at present to fundamentally rethink how the entire aid architecture works. Rather than addressing and resolving many of the global challenges and inequities we face today, the structures we have in place perpetuate and worsen them. As one senior humanitarian worker recently commented, quote, they, donors like the US, neglect international norms, support conflict, destroy the environment, and prioritize economic growth above people's lives, end quote. I'd like to highlight some failures of the current structures of aid and how we might reimagine this system. Firstly, any foreign assistance is intricately tied to the geopolitical and economic interest of the donors. For instance, while education remains a poorly supported aspect of humanitarian responses, this is made even worse by the ways in which funders step in to support some crises, but ignore education needs in others. Analysis by NEE highlights how populations most in need of funding for education programs are being left behind. This is because high-profile crises crowd out space and funding for other situations which don't capture the imagination of the international community. This has resulted in crises like Ukraine, attracting considerable support, for example, despite the needs being greatest in places like Sudan and Syria at present. Additionally, foreign aid has also been used as a tool for winning hearts and minds in conflict-affected areas globally. Education aid has become a tool for placation of the restless natives, just as it was under colonial regimes. In Afghanistan, for example, donors have used curriculum reform to either support regime change or justify the presence of other regimes. In Palestine, I've documented how education has been used by donors since the Oslo Accords as a tool against extremism and radicalization, without any attempt to address the root causes of the nearly 80-year conflict with Israel. And education initiatives implemented by international organizations are often designed in the global north with little or no input from people affected by crises. When actually put in place, they promote Western education norms and knowledge systems and have little long-term impact on learners or the communities. Additionally, many of these schemes frame young people as traumatized and unable to cope without external support. This contributes to a white savior industrial complex. So, I believe foreign aid has always been a weak form of reparation for legacies of colonization and imperialism, mainly because it positions those at the core of the global economy as having a moral obligation to redistribute some of that wealth from a position of benevolence. However, this doesn't acknowledge that those controlling the purse strings only enjoy this privilege because of a history of ongoing oppression and domination. It is unlikely that we can expect solutions and innovation to come from the very countries responsible for current global injustices. Aid needs to be framed instead as a matter of achieving global justice, which means freeing it from the vested interest and racial prejudices which determine who is deserving and who is not. A radical alternative would be a global wealth tax, tax and a system of delivering aid which provides unconditional cash transfers directly into the hands most in need, bypassing the intermediaries who are currently part of the current system. Such an approach is entirely achievable given our digital world and will restore a level of local agency, dignity, and self-reliance while also being more efficient. It would mean that rather than externally driven interest and agendas shaping education aid for millions of young people, a diverse range of views on learning, which are transparent about who is being taught what and why, could finally re-emerge. Thank you.